Get to know all your favorite VRChat DJs all in one place. This is VRCDJ Live.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I was out in the void. Live show. It's a live show. Wouldn't you realize it? Okay, good. I'm glad that we're here. I know everybody was looking at me like, well, Rob died. No, you're perfectly right. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. Wouldn't you believe it that we love to talk about everything in the VRChat community and the rave community. And that's it. We're doing it live. It's kind of a weird thing to just be able to start the show like that. Like, legit, as soon as I switched over the screen, it was gray screen, turned to black screen, and I was just like, well, wouldn't it be funnier if, like, we did a show and it was live and I was just sitting there being, like, hyper-focused in on the fact that the camera's dead on me? Anyway, welcome in, everybody. It's VRCDJ Live. I'm your host, Rob Roman, and we talk about everything about the DJ community with the DJ community, all from DJing to VJs to club owners to event coordinators to security and stuff like that. And what I wanted to start the show with is the fact that this community is constantly kind of fighting all sorts of different things on social media regarding the DJ community and lots of like what ifs. And it's a nice time to be able to have this show and be live with it and be able to kind of, break down that whole concept of, oh, well, I hear that this is being popular on the internet. How are we going to talk about it in real time in the VRChat community? That's the reason why we have this program where we sit down and we talk about all the things either coming up for the weekend or stuff that you may have heard on the internet regarding such and such DJ thing that had happened. Not mostly all rumors, but the fact that we can talk about it and we can find some time to kind of relay that information. And so thank you all for coming by and hanging out with us during the show, regardless of me just starting the show and freezing up on you like that. Wouldn't you know it? But I'll tell you this much. Our guest this week and this time in the chair, he is a Doujin music artist performing for a community of pilot enthusiasts in VRChat. He's featured performing styles of Jungle, UKG, and ToonamiCore, and has been known to not only perform music, but create his own records, which that he also likes to sell and perform during conventions. Everybody, please welcome to the VRCDJ Live Studios, Utami Hasegawa.
Hi there. I'm Utami Hasegawa. I run Tempo, which is Tempo VR, which is the, I guess, English-speaking hub for flight music events. So we do DJ events in SAC Flight World. So you'll have like the DJ booth on the back of an aircraft carrier, and then you'll have planes flying around and surface-to-air missiles and all that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of that. And really mostly I like to spin atmospheric jungle. That's what I started out doing. And then I kind of weave that into all that entire sphere. It's just expanded out from there.
I feel like as we began the show, I feel like you kind of already had like a few sentences prepared that like you have found a way to brand yourself and to talk about yourself kind of in a professional light of the things that you do. Is that something that you had practiced, or is that just something that you just made up on the fly?
A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. I had like the first couple sentences prepared, and then I kind of just made the rest up on the fly.
So that's interesting to me because, like, I don't know, I feel like every DJ has some sort of a quirk. I know for me, everybody knows that I start the You're in the Mix with Rob Roman's voice, and every time that they go see me perform, they're always anticipating that. And in the other particular case of, like, you have a bunch of DJs that are always looking for a way to explain what they do without just being like, oh, I am so-and-so, I am a DJ. So how important is that couple of sentences to be able to do? Is that what you would define as your elevator pitch?
I would say, yeah. It helps to kind of say, oh, I'm Utami Hasegawa and I'm a DJ, which says a lot, but it's a different it's sort of more elaborative. It's like, okay, I'm a DJ. What kind of DJ? Okay, I play atmospheric jungle. Okay, what else? What else you got? Okay, I play atmospheric jungle on the back of an aircraft carrier, while FA-18s like are passing by. Now, and then that's something that is that's something like, okay, lean it. Tell me more about that because that's particularly interesting.
But again, see, I love how you said that though, because there's still a ton of people that are still having a hard time breaking the ice with the way that they present themselves, or maybe they don't think about the way that they present themselves like that. Or maybe they're always asking or waiting for someone to approach them to say, so what do you do? How do you do the things that you do? What do you love to do? What do you want to do? As opposed to, well, I mean, just dropping off a few bits of information to kind of welcome everybody to the scene, and again, being just like that, you DJ at the back of these huge fighter pilot boats and ships. So all that is very fascinating, and being able to recognize that as your thing is super important. The thing that I started the show with, how we were introducing you, was the fact that you described your style and your identity as Doujin. And now I don't know what that means. I think there might be a ton of other people that would. So maybe you could probably break that down for us about why you chose to brand yourself using those words.
Yeah, so it more or less is the Japanese like otaku culture equivalent of independent. So the reason I go with that is I could I can say I'm an indie music artist, and that's true, but that's sort of it says something, but it doesn't quite say enough. So Doujin implies a particular like subcultural identity. So like you get an indie game. You can get an indie game off of Steam, and that doesn't really tell you anything about it. Whereas like Doujin Soft, that's something you got in like a jewel case with a paper insert from some guy at a table at a convention. Like that's the sort of thing I'm going for, which is exactly how I operate. So there's this one convention that I sell at, and I have all my CDs, all my music on physical CDs laid out on a convention table, and meanwhile I'll be spinning or I'll be live producing or doing whatever. But there's a it's that particular brand of DIY plus also the anime aesthetic, which I'm very deeply into, and that which kind of weaves into the whole ToonamiCore thing as well.
Yeah, and again, too, like even just bringing up the fact that you do that as well is kind of fascinating as a helpful little tidbit, because I would think that there are a lot of producers in VR, and they're looking to not only either sell their product or show off their product or something else like that, but they're not entirely sure what the next couple of steps imply. So if you could, like, and we were able to introduce you to the fact that you do sell your records at conventions, and you kind of put it into a type of focus. Give us a little bit of an idea about that. Give us an idea of like what caused you to want to do that, outside of I'm a producer, I want to share my music with the world, but at the same time, there's a whole theme to it. And I would only think that one of the other reasons why you would do it is for you to connect with other people that either like ToonamiCore or, flight simulator stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's there. There's an element where, okay, I have my music, I'm selling it on Bandcamp, some of it's on Spotify. Like that's standard, of course. But then and the particular convention I'm talking about that I sell at, it's specifically a retro gaming, but also like retro culture convention. So my stuff kind of fits in. It's got that mid late 90s sort of aesthetic, along with the whole aspect of kind of looking back, referencing like older anime and that kind of culture, and having it physically there connects with a lot of people because people like the physical media, people like the music, people appreciate the fact that you can go to someone, talk to them, buy their music on CD and have it, as well as the fact that it's all like, again, it's a particular type of DIY. So when I'm there, it's all, I have my music, it's in a jewel case, and I bring like everything with me. I got a box of empty jewel cases. I'm back behind the table, like cutting the little paper board for the inserts. I got this neat little thing that's got, it's got 6 CD trays in it. The top one you put the CD in, the bottom 5 you put blank CDs in, and it copies the top one to the bottom 5. So while I'm there, you can see that I'm making the product, I'm putting the product on the physical media and having it there available. So people really appreciate that, and it's something that you don't see a lot of, is people right there selling new music, but with kind of more old school aesthetic on physical media, and there you can listen to it. If someone is curious about a particular album, I'll I'll mix it right in as they're browsing, so they can hear what they're possibly looking at buying. So it's all very personal,
Now, I think it's a little
and that's
far.
what people appreciate about it.
I think it's going to be a little far fetched to even ask, because I know a lot of convention goers and people that have booths at conventions. Like, let's just say you make artwork. You'll either put up a sign saying, "Hey, I do commission," which I know we're going to get into a little bit more about a little bit later on in the program. But as you were saying, that not only do you make the albums there, you actually print them and you probably sign them or put them together, but you also like to perform the music. Have you ever considered, and again, this is slightly far-fetched, but have you even thought about maybe even like putting on a dual screen where you're sitting and you're like in a DAW and you're, making the boops and blips, but they could see it too, and they're just like, "Whoa, he's actually making the music," kind of a thing, as opposed to just DJing it.
Yeah, I do that exactly. So sometimes I'll be DJing, other times I'll take the deck down off the riser, put my MIDI controller there, and just kind of reconfigure my setup to just display my DAW on the screen, on the crowd facing screen, and I'll be making new tracks while I'm there. And so I guess the cool part is, so that next year, if the same person comes back who saw me producing one of those tracks, I can say, "Hey, that track that you saw me producing, that's on this album right here. The one that you saw me producing last year, I finished it off when I got home, and that track is on this album right here. It's track number 6 or whatever." So it it's a way where people can see the process. And people can see the product, they can understand the process. And like people who know music production, they'll come up and they're interested in what I'm doing because they can see, oh, this is a DAW. What's this guy over here doing? And then that turns into a conversation, and it's really interesting. Like, because the people I meet there, it's people I wouldn't know exist in my area, because I think I think, yeah, year before last, I actually met a guy who, first of all, he has the same first name as me, but second of all, he told me about, like, I guess 10, 15 years ago, there was a jungle scene in my area that I completely missed out on because I wasn't producing at that time. But it's these sort of things that you learn and you network with other people, and I wouldn't get that opportunity if I wasn't there, visible, playing the music, making the music right at this table, selling the music that people can take and hold in their hands in that very personal way. And I'm not a particularly social guy. But that that gives me like an avenue to like, it's a common ground where people can look at it and say, okay, this is we can connect at this basic level and start a conversation from there. It's always very interesting.
You know, I really hate to kind of think about it outside the box of the way that you present the way that you want to, that you're just like, I'm focused in on this. I'm going to work on it like this, and I'm going to make this my own. Everything is unique about this. Everything that we're talking about is getting me all giddy just because, like, the way you're explaining it and the way you want to be integrated with it, it's just like, it's so fresh and the idea is so clean and executed very well. And I think the rest of the things that we're going to be lining up the dominoes and everyone's going to hear about it and go, oh my gosh, this sounds like a great thing. And the one thing I hate about it is just like, there's so many passionate people like you in VR chat where they're doing a thing and it's repetitious. But then outside of that repetition, they're asking the $1 million question of what do I do with this? Or what's the next step in this? And I think you've already kind of blown it out of the water where you're just like, all right, why can't I do this? Why can't I go to a convention? Why can't I sell this stuff and talk to the people and get to know them some more? I think the DJs in here also kind of do the same thing as most of the rave people in here, which is they're going to go and do the thing, and then afterwards they're going to hop over to the next thing. And they're missing that social communication and idea of like relativity about being relatable and understanding that kind of concept. And the next kind of question I wanted to ask you about that too, because again, that's a whole nother, like, you won't catch me in that area during convention. You know, I'll probably talk to some like EDM people. Maybe I'll look at the Jet Set Radio people, but like, again, that's a whole nother thing. Like if you start creeping in that area, they're going to start kind of grilling you about all the detail and all the juicy bits. And you're sitting there going, I just like the game. I like the music. Let me have this thing, have this moment. But the same thing goes is that some of the pop culture conventions too, you have a lot of passionate flight people, flight junkies, flight pilot people. And on top of it too, is it uncomfortable to say that like they also like Gundam? Is that a weird thing to say?
That there's a lot of crossover. A lot of crossover. So I would say that if you have a flight person who likes anime, they probably also like Gundam. Not the least of which because like if you're trying to name you can name a whole bunch of mecha anime. That's not difficult. It's if you're trying to name a lot of like modern air combat anime, you you start to run into you start to run up against the wall. Uh, Up until like if you're not looking at stuff like Macross, you start to run up against the wall. You got Area 88. You got that's really the big one. Yeah, maybe Yuki Kaze if you're looking to go into something more futuristic. But really, I find that people who are into aviation really like piloting things, and so Gundam is kind of a natural extension of that.
So let's just say somebody comes up to you at talk wanting to talk Gundam. How do you kind of relate that information to the things that you create and you're passionate about that may not have something to do with that?
So along with what I specifically create, that starts to I have to get a little bit creative because then I might weave into more of the ToonamiCore aspect of okay, what did you watch Gundam Wing back in when it was on Toonami? If I know we're the same age, did you watch Gundam Wing or 8th MS Team or Stardust Memory 0083 back in the day? You can kind of relate that to having that same experience, but at the same time, it's like back when I was like early producing, like maybe 2021, 22. I made a couple tracks back in the day that were like uh, I think I had sampled the weird little warning siren they have on White Base. So it's that sort of thing where you kind of because that's what I grew up with as well. So you kind of weave those cultural influences into the music, and you can relate on that level.
So obviously we're going to be kind of breaking down your community tempo and the things that go on, not only DJ wise but fighter pilot wise. I got to come up with the actual word for it. I know you guys say that you're very passionate flyers, I guess, or you're flyers, I guess that's what I'd say.
The VRChat flight community, I'd say.
Flight community. Okay. So you'll probably hear me say a bunch of different variations on how to say it, because again, I see it from afar, and I'm the guy with the aviator glasses on, and I'm just like, yeah, I've seen Top Gun, and and like that's my cool element of just being cool over here. But at the same time, you know, again, we see it a lot at conventions, and we're gonna kind of get into a little bit of not only just the DJ side of things, but also understanding what the VR community wants. But again, going back to convention wise, because I think everyone at home, as well as for me, I kind of picture you sitting there putting together the CDs, making the bips and boops, as well as DJing and stuff like that, and having this huge like booth. But what kind of conversations do you have with con goers, and where have you been able to see the hobbyist side of it? I would assume that there's some more professional words and ideas of like maybe someone is an actual pilot compared to someone who's just done flight simulator stuff, or maybe they're just passionate because their family's been in it for such a long time, or military purposes or something like that. When it comes to pop culture, because it does happen in pop culture conventions and the conventions that you service, what kind of conversations do you have that don't involve virtual reality?
Well, a lot of the time they don't involve virtual reality at all. A lot of the time, people will see me DJing and ask where else I DJ, and really the only place I can say is I DJ in VR, and that'll start a conversation that way. But most of the time, it's more so talking about, all right, this is the kind of music I make. If you're familiar with, with usually I'll mention video games. So if you're familiar with Unreal Tournament or Ace Combat 3 or like Bomberman Hero, that's the kind of music. And I guess the funny part about it is a lot of people have, depending on how old they are, a lot of people have that experience, but don't quite know yet how to describe that genre of music that they like. So a lot of people, they grew up watching Toonami, or they grew up like playing Unreal Tournament, like Facing Worlds, and they 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 recognize like the breakbeat and the atmosphere, but they haven't, like, they don't know enough about like the history of the genre to be able to place it in a genre, in a time period, in a particular aesthetic. They just know, okay, I this is that music from that one map in Unreal Tournament, and they can hear that, and they already know they like it. They just don't know how to identify it. So a lot of the time people will come up and they'll hear the music, and it'll remind them of something that they have experience with in video games or in TV or in anime, and that can start that kind of conversation. So okay, yeah, I make atmospheric jungle. It's this kind of music that you remember from this or that thing in the 90s. And then I'll have my own elevator pitch that, oh, I've been producing since 2020. I make this kind of music. It's inspired by this. This album's inspired by that. I use these samples in this album, stuff like that.
Does that conversation kind of lead into more commission stuff too? Because I know we were kind of low key talking about it even before the stream happened, of the fact that like people could approach you for like maybe some sort of producer credit, or to be able to just produce something either for a video game, or let's just say somebody's putting together some weird intro for a stream or something, or if they have a concept but they're not sure about making it in a DAW. Is that the same kind of conversations that you have as a follow-up, saying outside of the elevator pitch?
A little bit. Usually the other person will initiate that if they're curious about commission or licensing my music for something like that. But for the most part, the most commission work I've gotten has been outside of the convention spaces, come from either the VR space or kind of the indie gaming space.
It's all great. I love this because the fact that like you could fly in virtual reality and have fun with it, and you can hear the sound effects and stuff like that. But I would think that you would be able to lock in better when you have that atmospheric stuff and you have the UKG going on, or even ToonamiCore style of like a hip hop, but like aggressive electronic hip hop kind of a thing, and we need that. That everybody kind of needs that in their life. And funny enough that like there was one convention that I went to where I did hear a couple of DJs perform something like that. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, that sounds great. That sounds cool. For someone that doesn't understand it, I kind of put that in the same realm as like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this DJ played Vocaloid, or they played like a Hatsune Miku track, or some sort of an anime either opening or an anime tune, or even just a Japanese tune that I may not understand, but I can get it because it calls to me.
Exactly.
So my question is just like, because it's so unique, and how is it? I'm trying to figure out a really good way of asking this question without just kind of just laying it down on the table. But there's so many other popular genres that happen in virtual reality that I think a lot of people can like spend more time to get to know and understand. For you, what does that community mean to you? And how have you seen that community grow? Because I would only assume that your community of Tempo has been, again, growing and having some significance, even comparable to not bending to the will of a popular genre.
What I find is that people like it, but they don't know they like it. Because again, they don't necessarily have that context to, like, if they were to look for more of this music, they don't know where to find it because they don't know what to look for on YouTube or something like that. I remember one of the first set that I ever played inside the VR headset was for the Collective, I think, and they were doing a drum and bass night. I took the first slot. I like to take the first slot, and I played more or less my usual stuff: atmospheric jungle, 90s sort of kind of chilled out, still inside the drum and bass genre, but a completely different style than what most people think of when they think of drum and bass. And a lot of the reaction that I got after I was finished my set, it was, I've never heard that kind of music before. What would is like, what just happened? What just happened here? What kind of music was that? I've never heard that, but I love it. Because a lot of people they recognize that general sound, but don't necessarily have that context for it outside of this sounds like that song in Bomberman Hero. And so a lot of the funny part is, when a lot of the time I'd like to take those exact tracks and mix them in. So at the end of my set, if I have like a minute 30 left, I'll put on that song that everybody remembers from Bomberman Hero, just as okay, this fits right into exactly what I'm doing. It uses the exact same breakbeat pattern as like 12 other tracks I have in my list, and it fits. It's that exact kind of music. When they were making games in that era, they used that kind of music a lot. That was a trend at the time, and as a result, you can mix that in, and people will go nuts. People will go nuts because they recognize that track. They recognize that track. They didn't quite know it fit. You can hear sort of the same pattern. It's in the same family of music, but then you hear the actual track and they're like, oh, okay, that's what kind of music this is.
And also getting to know it even better too. Like I'm hoping that it only takes like one tune. It usually takes like maybe 20 minutes, give or take, in a set to really win over some people that think, hey, this guy's really good, or I really like this guy's music, or maybe I can find other ways to see what else he does in VR and stuff like that. And it only takes just a few minutes to get an understanding of that. You said something very funny to me, and I want your opinion on it. Is just the fact that you like to take the first set. You like to take the opening set. Now, I will say, we did happen to have you on VRC DJ Radio at the first one that we did, and out of just pure coincidence, we ended up you were the first DJ to perform for VRC DJ Radio, and outside of just listening to your set a little bit, it fit. It fit the vibe of like we're waking up, we're getting getting an idea of how the rest of the day is going to play out, and you're setting the mood. I guess that's the term for it.
Exactly.
How do you feel about that? Because again, there are a lot of people that really want that headliner position, and would you feel comfortable staying in like an opening set kind of scenario most of the time?
I'm definitely not opposed to playing headliner, but the reason I like to take the opening set is because I know, and just from what I've experienced in the scene thus far, uh, the music I play is particularly chill and particularly mellow compared to the music a lot of other people play. So I don't necessarily want to try and follow up someone who just got done playing hard style and then like try and play like LTJ Bookham or something like that. That's just very atmospheric. There's not quite it's like atmospheric, non-melodic. It's just bass line and just a rolling breakbeat. I don't necessarily want to try and follow up someone who's just got done going as hard as they possibly can with something that's more chill. Because I recognize a lot of parties, a lot of clubs is like, okay, just play whatever you want, which I understand, but at the same time, I kind of want to follow the energy a little bit. And there's stuff that I can play that kind of follows the energy, but most of what I play is a lot more chilled out than a lot of what other people like to play. So I'll take the first slot to kind of set that mood. Somebody else can handle the hard stuff. I'll start us off with some liquid D&B or some atmospheric or some like uh, old school dubstep to kind of set the mood and to also kind of give people a little bit of a different flavor than what they might be used to.
I'm really excited about how comfortable you are about saying this, because as we stumbled into VRCDJ Live today, that was one of the talking points that I really wanted to kind of hone in on. Is almost every week on social media, I see something in the DJ community where somebody's about complaining about this, or someone wants to consider doing something, but they're not sure. So they're asking the internet for advice, and I'm just like, what are you doing? Like you're gonna get every answer on the planet. But like, one of the things people have been kind of asking lately is, how hard do you go at an opening set? Like, obviously, if you have a bunch of other DJs following you later, you don't want the crowd to be too tired for their set. Maybe they're going to be pumping up the volume a little bit later and pumping up the jams and stuff. And you don't want to not overstep them or step over them or step on them or anything like that. But you also need to find a way to hold your own. And the reason why I believe that this topic is such an important thing right now is because I think people genuinely, we've started at the beginning of the year. We got some bedroom DJs, and they're just like, yeah, I'm a bedroom DJ, and they're performing. But now they're kind of transitioning into the whole, okay, what if I'm the opener? What if I'm on a lineup? How can I handle this? Am I comfortable handling this? And at the same time, I mean, I'm glad that they're asking the questions, but it's either you do it right or you trip and fall, and it's going to be a really bad time later on. the beauty about what you've said was like, you know, that's what you're the most skilled with and that's what you're the most comfortable with. But I think within being comfortable with that, you're going to give everybody that's listening that same amount of comfortability of understanding, like, okay, there's still going to be a ton more DJs in the lineup that will also be amazing, whatever event that you end up doing. Speaking of which, do you also do that for your events as well? Like, do you tend to open for your events because you know that there's some other DJs on the lineup that can give a much more thrilling experience while you're flying?
It depends. So sometimes I like to open, and for my events, that's mostly because, okay, I'll open the instance, do my set. Okay, now I can manage the event. But it's also like, so last time we did flight night, this past Saturday, I had 3 DJs. I wasn't on the schedule, but I had 3 days that just did this perfect story arc. The first one spun atmospheric, that the second spun atmospheric into some like dark neurofunk sort of, that that kind of that family, and then the third came in with just smooth liquid, and that was like, okay, we've got this beautiful curve here. And so I came in last as like, okay, I'll I'll take us I'll take us through some jazz step back to atmospheric. And so like, it's if I can follow the vibe, that can definitely work. But otherwise, I'm I I'm comfortable uh, I'm comfortable playing first, just to just so I don't have to worry about like preparing a set while also managing an event.
I think just understanding the whole journey of how sound needs to be created and this whole adventure that you're going to want to go on while you're listening is also super important. Even though there are a lot of people in VRChat alone that you went to go see perform, and they'll just hit it really hard all of the time, which is a vibe. It's a mood. But at the same time, taking a couple steps back and just being like catching another type of style, and getting you ready for that mood definitely aids in your entire process with this. It's VRC DJ Live. We're sitting here with our guest Utami Hasegawa, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. I know we're already I'm just kind of asking you all the different questions. I'm not even looking at what I've written like 2 days ago. It's kind of important to kind of touch upon, but I feel like all of this is super important for a better understanding of A, the DJs that are performing in here, but B, what else that they could possibly do to help strengthen their brand, their identity, being able for better outreach and stuff like that. Again, I don't want to say that the pilot community is a little niche, but at the same time, it's not as massive as, you know, a much larger themed type of community, I suppose. I know we were talking about the cars community of the people that like driving cars. I think a VCAT also had some sort of motorbike club that they also get together, and they go they bring their motorbikes and they actually go out into a course and do that sort of a thing, which is so cool to be able to see that VRChat brings people together, but then you can also meet up later on. So being not saying that y'all have, you know, jets and y'all go out and fly your jets. I mean, unless you got that money, man. I mean, that would be the most. Watch, you actually come out and you're just like, well, Rob, exactly. But no,
Well, actually, I have a MiG-21 now.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, with this economy's jet fuel, I mean, good luck with just flying around having a good time with that. But I wanted to be able to break down the sense of adventure, like you were saying, of being able to build a set and painting a picture of how the night is going to go, depending on the type of soundtrack of flying, as we were kind of alluding to just earlier. But I want to be able to dive deep into Utami Hasegawa lore based on how did you come up with the idea and love and passion for, you know, UKG and Jungle style, as well as the ambient and the stuff that you would hear later on in Toonami.
So I guess I started with liquid. So back in like the early 2010s, I'd started listening to these liquid D&B mixes. And from there, I kind of started diving into stuff that was sort of older. So that's when I started finding like mid 90s good looking records, old school atmospheric drum and bass. And that's when I started producing in 2020. That's what I ended up kind of latching onto. That's when I really found my sound. And from there, it was kind of just expanding from, okay, we're gonna we're gonna put a pin in like 1995 and kind of expand outward from there. And so that's when I started investigating sort of the history behind it, the UK hardcore, going forward into UKG, and then going all the way back into like the deep history of like, okay, Jamaican sound system culture and dub music and where that came from. Then that got imported into the UK, and that's where we end up with jungle. And then from there, you kind of get into UKG and dubstep and that sort of thing. So really, for me, it's sort of it starts with the music and then investigating the history and kind of the through lines you can draw through all these genres that like I latched onto that. And so like my thing is kind of I'm into everything that's downstream of Jamaican sound system culture. And that's also like kind of my history too, because my whole family's from Jamaica. And my uncles used to do that sort of thing. They used to build these speaker boxes and set up these turntables. And so in a way, it's kind of like me getting back in touch with my roots, even though I didn't know that at the time when I got into it.
Now, you also kind of mentioned the time of the era of 1995. I know one of the posts that you've had pinned on your social media for a while kind of alludes to the idea of looking at old anime and not only just understanding the music built into that specific scenes of like action or stress or thrill and stuff like that, but there was a specific theme and time of era that defined how the energy was kind of capsulated in 1995. How are you able to kind of identify that or break it down for those people that, again, Toonami was such a long time, and we would love for it to keep coming back, but at the same time, I'm going to ask the silly question next, but I want to be able to dive into that concept of saying, hey, this old style CRT looking TV looking television of fighter pilots and tension, I guess, the 1995's tension of anime. How did that have some sort of an influence on you? Because I know that was something that you were kind of mentioning to a lot of people to say you need to look a little bit further than just on face value of that.
Yeah, that kind of came from like at that point like 5 different people independently of one another had said to me, "Your music sounds a lot like what they used to play on like old school Toonami bumpers back in like 1999, 2000." And so I kind of leaned into that because that's also what I grew up on. Like from the very beginning of Toonami, that was my inception into anime and a lot of that culture that a lot of people my age who are into anime also have that sort of that experience and those memories. So that kind of in a way I sort of leaned into it, but in a way it's what I was already doing. So that's where ToonamiCore comes from. It's that sort of aesthetic. I call it a made up genre. I would say it's more so like just a musical aesthetic. It's a range of different genres plus the kind of the visuals and culture that contextualizes it. So like it's atmospheric jungle, but it's also like lo-fi, breakbeat, ambient. Like it's a lot of it's difficult to call it a genre. it's more of an aesthetic. The thing I would most equate it to is something like Rally House, where it's not so much a genre as it is a set of genres plus the aesthetic of rally racing and PS1 racing games and that sort of thing where if you look up Rally House, you really can you're really looking for a particular sound that isn't encapsulated in just one genre. Same thing with ToonamiCore. You're looking at a particular branch of atmospheric jungle, but also there's some hip hop in there. There's some like ambient techno in there, and it's all contained within a range of influences that different people latch on to different elements of it. So, uh, which is why like 5 people independently of each other have told me 5 different tracks all sound like something from Toonami, and these are tracks that me personally, I don't think sound like anything from Toonami at all. But different people latch on to different parts of it, and so they hear something that I don't contextualize as being part of any Toonami bumper that I've ever heard, but when they hear it, it brings them back to that era. And so it's more so like this music brings you back to this specific context where it's after school and you're at home and Zoids is on the TV and you're watching Zoids or you're watching Robotech or something like that. It's a particular aesthetic that brings you into a particular context based on the music and based on the how the how the music plays into something that you have context for based on your culture, based on what subculture you've been a part of.
I think the way you're trying to explain it is beautiful in its own way because besides you actively going on Wikipedia and typing in what is ToonamiCore, or for people that may not truly understand Toonami or understand that thing, it's hard to explain. It's harder to want to try to connect with without people finding the extra time and care and attention to want to go back to that time to revisit all of the old shows, the feeling, the aesthetic of it all, because it is a part of that nostalgia that defines you, but it also could probably aggravate you too that people don't get it and you're not on that same level. I would only think that only has to do with people getting older, but it's just like, what do you mean you don't watch? Like I grew up on Ren and Stimpy. I'm just like, what do you mean you think it's gross? Like I think it's awesome. Well, maybe I'm gross. I don't know, but and I want to be able to dive into that idea some more because not only again, even though it's a made up term, there are a ton of people in VRChat that identify themselves as a core. You have nerd core and you've got like anime core, kawaii core, or whatever. And maybe they do make up a weird version of it, but people understand it when you say it. So instead of saying Toonami-esque or Toonami-ish, ToonamiCore be more focused in on a specific part of Toonami as opposed to all of the encompassing of Toonami. Kind of want to lead into, we have a question in chat that it seems like a very obvious answer, but what I want to do is I want to add on it and expand upon it. What is the difference between UKG and Jungle? Because while a lot of people will say UKG/Jungle, I would think that both of those have their own weight in performance.
Yeah, I would say, and I'm not an expert. I've done research, but I wouldn't call myself an expert. I would say they share they're in they're in the same like UK underground rave music, that sort of circle, but they have different origins. I would hesitate to put them in in the same category as one another outside of them being both UK like rave music. So my understanding is UK garage grew out of the house scene. That grew out of like the New York house scene in America. Bring that over, and the UK kind of does their own thing with it, and that gets turned around into UK garage, two-step garage, speed garage, that sort of thing. Whereas jungle, that grew out of like the like breakbeat hardcore scene, which itself came out of acid house. So they both have all of them all the way back. You can find kind of similar origins, but they're different eras of music and different styles of music. Your UKG is close. Uh, Jungle is more breakbeat focused. That's more you're taking a sampled amen break or a think break or what have you, and you're doing something with that. Whereas UKG kind of grew out of more of a four on the floor type of paradigm. So it's they're similar, and they I think by the time UKG became big, the term jungle had sort of fallen out of use, and it was drum and bass by then, and that sort of coincided with a lot of stylistic changes that happened in the genre, but they're in a similar they're in a similar scene, but not. I would hesitate to put them in the same category beyond them just being both UK underground music.
And the way you're kind of explaining it too, that the fact that you have a lot of DJs in here, as much as it's so easy to just say, I do dubstep, I do rhythm, I do, trance, I do techno, being able to kind of be more definitive about it, be more finite, detailed on it, gives it a little bit more volume, gives a little bit more importance to your understanding of it. House, I think a lot of people enjoy house, but different versions of house. And to be fair, also too, even punk music has had its whole stylistic wheel of choices of versions of punk that you can enjoy. And to be fair, you can enjoy all the flavors of punk and still be punk. Same thing with house. Same thing with pretty much almost anything. Even drum and bass, which is something I got to experience early on too, was the fact that I think a lot of people like the mainstream drum and bass, but liquid drum and bass still is drum and bass, even though it is a vibe. It's got the ambiance and stuff like that. Kind of a focus in on that. I want to bring it back to ToonamiCore for a real brief moment, because besides the fact of calling it ToonamiCore, I feel like most of the music that you either perform or you create also has weight and significance for your community in how you use the music as a vehicle, pun intended, with the vehicle that you have. One of the things that I've found very unique this past year is seeing a set from Pauly D, who was performing in VRChat. He's got this wonderful way of performing house music while having video footage from his car while he's driving on the highway, and it's like 500% faster speed. And you can see him going around. You can see the lights kind of going, but it has this extra flavor to the music. When you're driving, you're kind of locked into the music and the sounds that you have. Same thing when you're flying, pilots and stuff like that. And I want to get into that idea a little bit later on. But what I want to do is I want to be able to break down what your opinion is on keeping that legacy of a genre alive, because I think a lot of people that do go to conventions, they see all sorts of different things between, you have the standard anime stuff. You have people that will dress up as Sailor Moon and call it a day. I will also say that you do see a lot of Naruto ninjas I haven't seen Naruto, but you see the collective of the people wearing the black cloaks and with the red swirls. I think that they're a brand of ninja. I think that's what they are. Um,
I have only watched 5 episodes of Naruto, so yeah, I think that's the Akatsuki.
okay.
I'm like an 85%
I
on
don't
that,
want to think
but
that
I
they're
still
bad guys
I
though,
have my
right?
Naruto headband. It's like
Yeah.
I think it's like 8 feet behind me.
But I also feel like as soon as like I feel like that's a rite of passage to be able to put that on and just all of a sudden like transport to Toonami. You know, like that's like I feel like every person that has had that experience or any person that I've seen wearing that at convention, that is like that is their indication. They're like, "Oh, I'm skilled in Toonami," as opposed to Naruto, which is very funny to say. But in your opinion, especially with like was it Star Junk 95? That guy's coming out and he's playing all sorts of new Jet Set Radio sounding tunes. Um and he's getting all this popularity between that and new disco coming out, and people are kind of revisiting what it's like back in the day. How important is it to keep the whole ToonamiCore and that type of energy alive in a modern era?
Yeah, I think and specifically for something like ToonamiCore that's very deeply in anime. I something that I'd noticed over the past 10, 15 years is particularly in the anime community is people get really laser focused on what's coming out this season. All right, I got these are the shows I'm watching this season, and then next season they're looking at the list. These are the shows I'm going to watch next season, and there's a lot of really really good stuff that people completely miss out on just because it's uh, even a few years older. So part of it is like when I'm DJing, I have my visuals and it's just all old school anime. Tenchi Muyo, Gunsmith Cats, what else? I think I have like one or two Gundam anime in there, like 8th MS Team, Zoids, all that sort of these classics that people people my age remember. But people might look at it and say, okay, I I recognize that that's an old school anime because I recognize that old anime looks like that, and they might get interested in that. And so I think definitely for Toonami Core, as far as that goes, maintaining that part of the aesthetic where it's it's old school atmospheric drum and bass with the backdrop of this old school anime, these old school cartoons, this like old school style of 3D animation that they were doing back in the early 2000s, all that kind of stuff. And I think what there are interesting places you can go with it, especially nowadays, because like the creative tools have been so democratized. Like you can, with a bit of know-how, you could go into Blender and make animations that are kind of reminiscent of that style of animation that was cutting edge back then, but is more closer to trivial nowadays. It's possible to e- it's definitely possible with music, but with the other elements, with the animation and with the aesthetic, it's possible to not just preserve what we had, but make new things inside that realm that people can latch onto and then take and bring into the future. And so that's what I see with a lot of genres. You mentioned disco. Uh, Atmospheric drum and bass is it's it's not big. It's never really been big, but it's a really good era for it because we have a bunch of artists, a bunch of independent artists, as well as a bunch of artists that have been producing for decades that are coming out with new stuff all the time. And so it's a really good era for particular particular genres and particular styles of that kind of thing. And this happens with across multiple genres, across multiple periods of time. It's just we're in a really good spot for it with ToonamiCore, with atmospheric drum and bass, with even flight games. We're in a really good spot for flight games right now, and so I find I see myself as fortunate that this is when I started deciding to do all this, because it's a really good spot to be in when all of this stuff is kind of coming back or having some sort of resurgence or is still going from the 90s or the 2000s.
I was gonna say, is there music that happens in flight games nowadays? I've never touched a flight simulator, so do you listen? Is there music actually on the flight simulator? Do you enjoy it?
It depends on the flight simulator. So there was a game that came out for a few years back called Project Wingman, and that was sort of an attempt to make an Ace Combat game. So Ace Combat is the major. It's not necessarily a simulator, but it's the big flight game that a lot of people know about. So like basically a team of 3 guys set out to make their own Ace Combat game, and first of all they did it, which is powerful on itself. But one thing that people really grab onto with Ace Combat is the soundtrack. They have such a consistently good soundtrack with each game that when Project Wingman came out and people heard the soundtrack, they were going, "Oh, okay." It's not just this team of people with the backing of Bandai. Like, people can do this. People can not just make games that are this good, but make games that are this good with music that's that good. And so it's not atmospheric jungle that there's like one Ace Combat game with that kind of music in it, but it showed that regular people, regular indie developers can make a game of that caliber with that level of production value. And so like anybody can do that now. It's not something that's like it requires a major publisher. Now if you're a team and you know how to network and you know how to look for, okay, can this guy do UI, can this guy write characters, can this person do music, you can create something that is of that caliber.
All of it is just rocking my brain because that's a whole nother part of the internet that I've yet to explore or get an understanding of. My roommate loves flight simulators. He's got the whole flight stick built into his chair and the foot pedals and all that sort of stuff, to the point where like I'm like, you technically just go to school, just go fly an actual plane, go take care of that biz. And I understand it takes many years and lots of money to be able to kind of do that comfortably as a passion, let alone just as a hobby. But it's also very fun to be able to see that so many people are so invested in it and the time, and even not only that, but like it's kind of almost, well, I don't want to compare it to, because I don't think there is an added comparison to it. But let's just say, like Initial D, for example, when you see like racing cars games, and not games, but like shows, and the energy that it shows with that, and it's just kind of, you got the Eurobeat kind of style running around there, and it's just the energy of it, the thrill of it all, really kind of makes it this awesome showcase. I guess a show or showcase of it, and just being able to feed into that energy and be excited with even more people that are excited about it is super important. So just hearing about it too, I'm just trying to come up with the really popular words for it. A really good idea to be able to bring it up. But it is VRCDJ Live, and we're here with Utami Hasegawa, kind of breaking down all sorts of different things between the flight community and ToonamiCore and DJing. And again, those are just some of the trigger words of all of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far in this entire package. You make the music. You produce the music. You actually physically produce the music. You perform the music. You give a stylistic of the music. You have a record company that you're kind of putting on together with your website and stuff like that. You've got a community of flight people that also listen to that type of music. You put on events because of that music and while you're flying at that type of music. Do you have any downtime? You seem to be like really passionate. You have tons of passion for all sorts of different things you got going on in your life. Do you want to have downtime, or do you just like being busy all the time?
I don't like having downtime. Downtime is when I can't figure out what I want to do, and so I'm kind of just sitting here like, "Oh, what am I supposed to be doing right now?" No, I like having something that I could be working on at any given point of the day, and it's important that it's something I enjoy, but I like having something that I like having a lot of projects so that if I end up say, okay, I can feel I'm kind of starting to burn out on this thing. I can swap over to this next thing and be like, okay, where was I when I left off on this? Let me start back up on this again. See how much I can finish on this before I need to do something else.
Do you think it's kind of
So
an
I
Go
I,
ahead.
I like being I like being I like being busy and having a lot of stuff to do.
Do you think it's kind of important to be a little bit of a busybody in the virtual reality rave scene in general? I mean, I could just say the VR chat community in general, because the people that make avatars or world creation or what have you, even community management tends to be a big time killer. But at the same time, you do want to have some DJs looking to push their profession. They want to be able to push the things that they enjoy to do while also making more very fun things that they can show off on the internet, and even with some of the videos that you post online as well, you know, that go with the music, consider it as like a pseudo music video. Um, Kind of go back to the question: do you think that most DJs in here should be just as busy as you are?
I think that starts to that starts to get to a question of how much can you handle personally, because I've seen people definitely try and do a lot, and I can tell that they're they're beginning to overextend themselves, and once that happens, it's like everything else suffers as a result. So it's really a matter of, like, ask yourself personally, how much can you handle? And then, like, what more could you be doing that you would enjoy doing? So that's not so it's like it's less of a burden as, "Oh, okay, man, I have to do this now." It's less of that and more of, okay, uh, it it's less of that and more of you start to get disappointed that you can't be working on this thing that you enjoy because you're working on this other thing that you enjoy. It's like, if I don't come out with a Flyboys Love Jungle mix on YouTube for a few months, I'm a little bit upset about that, but the reason is because I was working on something else that I enjoy, that might be a little bit more, like, more time sensitive than having another mix out on YouTube.
I mean, I would hate to say it, but tomorrow is May, and I don't want to be like the fact that it always happens to be that the fifth month of the year, every year, we either receive someone that has some form of burnout or disinterest in, you know, again, that's 5 months of trying to DJ, try to make a name for yourself, a brand identity, and then all of a sudden, 5 months, you're just like, yeah, and then you kind of fizzle away. Do you think that's going to tend to happen again for those people that are looking to push through April to make something of themselves in May?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have, because it also depends on what you're doing to try and accomplish that. So if, like, in my opinion, if you're, okay, I'm gonna play as many sets as I possibly can from January all the way up to the end of April and see how that goes. You're probably guaranteed to burn out if you're doing that, just because, okay, where you're playing sets, okay, every other DJ is playing sets. If you're trying to stand out, that starts to become a question of, okay, what else could I be doing that's really unique to me and kind of the brand I want to establish, or like my specific combination of skills that I can do, or something like that, where you don't have to do as much work, and you can do more things that you might particularly enjoy, as opposed to, okay, I'm just going to continue playing as many sets as I possibly can. That I feel is when you start to get burnout, because that's now you're doing the same thing without necessarily seeing uh the result you're trying to get out of it after 1/3 of a year, and that would bother me if I was doing that.
By no means am I on doing VRC DJ Live just saying, "Hey guys, it's May. You're gonna have burnout." But like, we've been doing this program for close to 2 years, and we bring this up, and it just so happens that around April, May, June, it's getting hot out. People have other priorities, other hobbies. Maybe their families want to take vacation, and they're mentally they're not there. They're kind of still locked in. But depending on where you're at, it could be warmer out, and you're going to want to spend more time outside touching grass. That's the thing that we all need to kind of pretend to do and hydrate and all that sort of stuff. But I want to be on this show. I want to be as realistic as possible for the DJs that are out there. I want to give them opportunities to ask the questions and kind of figure out where they want to be headed in the next couple of months anyway, especially when you are looking to lock in. And again, being able to focus your attentions on your community and your love for UKG and ambient culture and all that sort of stuff, that's going to continue to fuel your fire to do the things that you're passionate about and what you love, even comparable to the I need to perform 3 events for the weekend to meet my quota of how many events that you want to do in the year. This is the same kind of conversation too of how we brought up the fact that like you want to open. I think there's a lot of people that want number one, they either want that opportunity to open, or they probably shouldn't be as butthurt as they say that they are, being like, well, how come I'm not the headliner? How come I'm not important enough? I don't know. I mean, at the same time, you got to practice. You got to make a name for yourself. You have to give some time to yourself to continue to promote yourself, to do the fun things that you do. Now, speaking
And
of,
I guess I should say I came into this scene like not knowing any of that, because like the first DJ set that I ever played was there was there was an event that happened every Tuesday that kind of just vanished, and so this DJ named Straggler said, "Hey, this event hasn't happened in the past like 2 weeks. I'm gonna put together a pop up for this coming Tuesday. Anybody who wants to play, just let me know." And I'm sitting there staring at the Discord messages like, do I do it? Do I do it now? I think I'm ready. Do I do it now? And so I just decided, okay, I'll take the first slot. Just so it's like, okay, this is my first time ever doing a set on VRChat. Let me take the first slot, so there is less pressure on me to kind of perform at a high level, and that went okay. And so kind of the next time that happened, uh, I think I took the second slot, but the first DJ didn't show up, so I kind of took the remainder of the first slot and wove that into my my second slot. But it's like I didn't know that was a thing, that the opener plays more chill music, and then the headliner, I didn't know what a headliner was when I started this out. It was more so me just finding where I'm comfortable and establishing myself there, and establishing, okay, this is the kind of music I play. I can tell just being here and adventuring around the different clubs and whatnot, okay, a lot of people are playing a lot of very hard music. That's not necessarily what I play. I'll take the opener just so I don't have to follow somebody who's playing as hard as they possibly can. And so I didn't know that there was any sort of rule or contention or that people were complaining about that. I just found where I was comfortable and established myself there without without it being a rule or anything based on anything anybody else was doing. It was just that was just me. That was just me and the music that I know that I like playing.
Well, let's take it back a little bit too, because normally when we have guests on the program, I kind of want to ask them how they even got into virtual reality in general. But there's so many other concepts that we have to kind of put into play here. It's just the fact that you either like flight simulators, so you joined VRChat for that. Maybe you saw a funny video, so you joined for that. You're making music. Did you join because of the music? How did you get to want to be in VR? And what was your first calling when you got in here?
So I should preface by saying I had known that I wanted to do the music thing since before getting in VR, and I'd known that I wanted to play around in the flight simulator thing, but since before getting into VR, because I had watched all the like VR chat club scene documentaries, all the one that PBS put out, the one Straz put out, all of those, the one I think Resident Advisor put out. I'd watched all of those before I had gotten the headset, and I'd done a little bit of adventuring around in desktop, like visiting some of these club worlds, kind of hanging out, not really talking to anyone, but just kind of looking around and experiencing that. But I don't remember which one I did first, but the first like real world that I went into when I finally got a headset, it was either the F-14 flight carrier world or it was Club Orion. I don't remember which one it was, but I've known since before getting into this that I'd wanted to do both, and sort of for a while they were separate things, and then
I was
I
gonna say you
started
wanted to
to look
merge the
into it.
two at some point in time.
Yeah, at some point, I was looking at it as like, okay, uh, I I know, and this is when I started making worlds. I was like, okay, I know how to make a club world at a basic level. I know how. I kind of, in theory, know how to make a SAC flight world at a basic level. What if I just took the video player and put it in the SAC flight world, and then that worked? And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. What if I took there's a back seat in this AWACS plane. What if I put a Flex 4 back there? And that's and I took that and moved the plane and it stayed in the back of the plane, and I'm like, okay, all right, we can do this now. And so that's that sort of became my first like DJ flight world. And to be fair, I'm not the first person to do that. I know there are, I think, one or two Japanese communities that do that, and there is at least one person in the English speaking world who did make a club world flight world before I did. But I feel like Tempo is the first like dedicated, okay, this is what we're doing. We are that Venn diagram between the flight world and the club world, and the little tiny part of that where that overlaps, that's Tempo, and we're just trying to push those two circles together as much as we can.
That sounds like such a wacky concept too, because like you see really big EDM artists, and they have the money and the influence to go perform wherever they choose. And like even recently, how like what was it? Tiesto was the one that like played on the pyramids in Egypt or something like that. Like that's wacky. Why would you do something like that? And I think David Guetta ended up following up with that by doing something wacky too. But like I could totally see like someone flying the jet, and then you've got like Dylan Francis in the back of the jet, just in there with the Flex 4, or like James Hype, and you guys are doing flips and barrel rolls and whatever, and you're kind of doing that, and I'm just like, why don't we have that? That sounds fun.
When it really pops off, it's absolute chaos. because the first time I held a really big event in my first flight world, the old Mimir Space Center. We had the DJ was playing. We have a stage that's on a little green that's between the taxiway and the runway. So you'll have planes going by this way, turning around, and then taking off of the runway while the DJ is playing. So we had the DJ playing, and we had kind of coordinated that with an event that the Black Aces were hosting. They were doing a dogfight tournament.
Hmm.
And so after the dogfight tournament let out, they dropped a portal to my world. And so at a certain point, I just start seeing all these pings. This person's joined, that person's joined, this person's joined, all from the fighter jet community. And they all just start swarming around, grabbing the planes, and then taking off in the taxiway, taking off in the one way, taking off at the side of the island. And then eventually you have like 3, 4, 5 jets just doing this tightest circle possible around the little green that we have the DJ stage at, all with their smoke on. It looks like the inside of a hurricane. You've got all these jets just streaking around with this just wall of smoke going up while the DJ is spinning. So when it really pops off, it's absolute chaos, and I love it.
Spinning and spinning.
Spinning and spinning,
okay.
exactly. Because it's like, because it's not a traditional version of either a club world or a flight world. Because club world, you obviously you don't have fighter jets. You don't have the noise that happens. Because I do try to mitigate some of the noise from the fighter jets, but when the F-18 passes by at like 700 knots, you hear the sonic boom. And if that happens at the exact right part, that's the point where it's like, okay, this is what it's all about. You're taking the music, and you're kind of doing a free form, wherever the music takes you in the air, you're doing that, and that just adds to the excitement. But yeah, it's a fusion of both in a way that is really similar to neither one when you do both at the same time.
So let's break down tempo a little bit, because I would assume that even before the DJing was happening, like you were saying, you went to go to Club Orion to kind of peep the scene, see what it was all about. Obviously, you were doing the music thing, but you were really interested and passionate about flying, and maybe break down the idea of how you were introduced to the flight community in here, because I think a lot of people recognize that it exists in here from a lot of people that do be a part of it. But break down that the timeline of how you were able to just join the community, and then you just kind of pitched the idea, hey, why don't we DJ while we're doing this too?
The flight community thing was kind of gradual, and then all at once. It was like, okay, I'm tooling around in the F-14 world or in Desert Air Base, and kind of getting used to the flight physics and whatnot. And then I joined in on one of the Black Aces tournaments after they had finished, and people were just goofing around. And that's when it was kind of, okay, these are some pretty cool guys I can hang with. The integrating that into the club thing kind of happened bit by bit, where a couple of my friends from the Black Aces would join in on me as I'm doing some testing out for like Hangar 95, the first club world I built. And so they'll pop in and it's like, okay, what's this? They have context for it because they can see, okay, there's a MiG-29 hanging out there. There's obviously an aircraft hangar, but like, okay, what else is going on here? And I'm like, okay, people do DJ sets in here. People do live music here. I'm building a world for that. And they have a little bit of context, but that's something they haven't really been exposed to before. And it's the same on the other side. So like it's funny when I'm spinning on like the aircraft carrier, and I mention and someone from the club scene comes in, I'll mention to them, hey, all these aircraft are flyable, by the way. And I'll see them kind of look over and do a double take, is like, and they'll run over to one of the airplanes, and then out of the corner of my eye, I'll see the airplane kind of taxi, 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 and then taxi right off the side of the carrier, and then and then they'll pop back in the spawn point and walk over, and it's like, yeah, I don't know how to fly any of these, so I'll kind of give them a little bit of a crash course while I'm spinning. But it's funny when someone from one side kind of discovers the other side, and some people really latch onto it. Some people from the fighter jet community kind of really they found that they really enjoy the music scene, and some people from the music scene found that they really enjoy flying. And it's fun that Tempo gets to be that place where these two kind of meet each other.
And just understanding that too, when we had Purity Star on last week, we were trying to understand the concept of networking, and it's what an amazing time for us to continue this conversation of networking and developing good networking. Just as we just announced how, like, in May there's going to be a lot of burnout, so it's kind of tough. It weighs a little back and forth of like, how do you want to handle it if you're going to take the next step forward by networking and talking to more people and getting them more engaged in the things that you like to do, or trying to find a good way to kind of collaborate both those. Or do you work too hard that you burn out and it's just not fun anymore? And it's nice to be able to see that you're able to connect the two, and also be able to kind of bring up a whole community of people that either A, started as DJs or wanting to learn how to be as a DJ, or vice versa with flying and stuff like that. So out inside of the community of Tempo, being able to introduce both ideas and both concepts, I would assume that there's an equal balance between learning how to fly and DJing, or is it a matter of like somebody gets to pick and choose, and then you guys can have a conversation of where you want to go with that?
I mean, getting into learning how to fly is definitely easier than DJing because all the jets are right there. As far as DJing goes, I am more than happy to give any DJ who thinks they're ready to play their first opportunity, because that was given to me. So it's important to me that I pay it forward to other DJs, and to there are there's at least one DJ I can think of that's in Tempo's community that I think they're really coming up, and I'm biased. They play atmospheric jungle, so to put out there that I like the kind of music that they play, but they're really talented. They have taste, and I'm more than happy anytime that they feel like they're ready to play. I'm more than happy to extend that opportunity, as well as anybody else. There are a couple people in the fighter jet community that I know of that are interested in producing, interested in DJing, and I'm definitely I kind of selfish. I want to be their first set. Like, I want Tempo to be where they first play, because A, it's a fighter jet world. They're already comfortable with that. But B, I like that I'm able to offer that space to people who are wanting to get into this music space, because again, it was offered to me.
I really wish that most clubs would also be selfish like that too, and more of a positive spin on the word selfish as well, because there's so many people out there that will either, oh man, I don't even know how I want to be able to approach this. There was another thing that I saw. Again, I read all the DJ gossip news on the internet, and I try to like come up with my own spin on it that's not so negative all the time, or getting a good understanding. And one of those things that came up was the idea, and again, You know, we've seen it time and time again where up on Instagram and social media, you'll have those promoters being like, here's the Google form. If you apply to DJ at this residential spot, we're looking for more DJs. Send me your stuff. Send us all your stuff. And then you fill out a form to send up all your stuff. There's a whole bunch of people online that they're just like, well, that seems disingenuous. You know, like you're gonna want someone that is invested in what you can bring as a club owner and promoter, while also attending the club to say, hey, this is what this looks like. I think I can bring this vibe into it as well. But also being able to say, like you were saying, that you have a bunch of people that are interested in DJing, that you really want them to have tempo as like the first place that they spin, and then hopefully get really good, and then bring in the bunch of money and give you a bunch of money and be like, thanks, daddy. You know, thank you for teaching me. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, I think a lot of clubs in VR, you know, I feel like, and again, it's a hot take, but I feel like a lot of them are just looking to fill spots to have big events. And also they should probably dial it back and say, well, we have this member of our community who's been trying. We want to showcase them, and not even just a residency, but just like we want to showcase them so that way people will like them more or get to know them more. And there are communities in here that do that. I don't think that they do it as frequent as we want them to, though. So maybe it would be a really good time to be able to spin all of that and get a better idea of how all of that is, you know, creating a possibility. Now, I'm going to say the funny question. Where does Utami Hasegawa fit in for the profession of aviation? Do you think that we'll be able to see you want to be a pilot someday, or you know, maybe fly an aircraft or something?
Well, so I am a private pilot in training. I've got like 20 something hours. I'm still working on it, but I will say, at least I'm a much better pilot IRL than I am in VR, and I'm a much better DJ in VR than I am a pilot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were you actually gonna make that promise for yourself that you're gonna do the DJ while you're flying an aircraft? I'm not saying that's safe by any means, but like it would make for some really good YouTube content in the future.
That will be hilarious. Probably against FAA regulations.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've read of that.
You're talking to the tower and you're just scratching the entire time, and they're just it's the same people that do the meow and the barking when they're talking to the tower. Yeah. That's so silly, but like you gotta have a moment.
On guard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's super awesome to see though too, because again, we get a lot of people that are doing the flight simulations, and like they're getting themselves prepared for greatness if they decide to want to do that. But like in the case of my roommate, he would love to. He loves NASA and going to the Space Museum and talking to people that share the same passions as he does, even though sometimes they can be weirder. There'll always be another person who's more passionate than you are and make it really weird. And I'm just like, you found your tribe, you found your community to be able to do that, but also be able to connect with people in virtual reality outside of the realms of the YouTube garbage of being like, well, YouTube is labeled as this, that, and the other thing, and you can't have fun in VR. Well, guess what? You're having fun in VR by being able to produce tempo and this amazing community as well. I want to continue to feed into regular social media garbage, and when I was creating some of the questions for this interview, I know one of the hotter topics was Coachella, the fact that Coachella recently just kind of happened, and for the life of me, I can't escape it. I can't escape it in my brain. It's not a matter of it just constantly feeding into my social media feeds. But we continue to have this open-ended question about the DJs in there and putting together the lineup and having celebrity DJs and also like, you know, just finding new ways to get involved in Coachella, where in previous years we've had Hatsune Miku perform at Coachella, but I think a lot of people are missing the idea. I think she's cool, I think she sings great, and I think she performs great, but I think they're missing the idea of why she's there and the reason why all of this kind of kind of happens. So here on the program, we do love to we love to kind of break down the idea of bridging the gap of understanding of the things that we do in here compared to what we want to do in real life. Obviously, as I was saying, how like I was kind of pulling at you, being like, "Oh, you're gonna be a pilot someday," and you're like, "Yeah." I'm writing the book of being a pilot. What do you mean? Like, of course. So I want your ideas about this, because while it is fun to be in here as a hobby, while it's fun to kind of continue to fly in here, and there's people that are passionate about it, how can we continue to bridge the gap between the things that you're proactively doing, even building maps and building not festivals, but an event lineup, and being able to DJ and stuff like that? How can we continue to bridge the gap into the future of the things that we're currently doing in here right now?
I think networking is definitely important. I think that just being able to talk about what you do with other people that might be uninitiated is very important, because it's like even going back to like when I was kind of building up what tempo was going to be, speaking to people in the fighter jet community about what I do is okay. There's this entire other side of VRChat that is music events and live DJing, and here's how it works. There's the music play, there's the video player, and they run it through a Twitch stream or a CDN, and they're the DJ's running OBS, and they're doing live, and then being able to explain that in a way that they can understand and then put into context and kind of start thinking about how that can integrate with what they're doing. It's like, okay, this person, they're part of our community. They also do this music thing. That's really cool. They built like kind of a halfway flight world with the music thing in it. That's really cool. I've never seen that done before. Maybe we can do something, and then we end up in the middle of the hurricane with 5 jets flying around. But it's a matter of being able to talk to people in a way that puts what you're doing into a context that they can understand, that they can start to integrate that with whatever it is that they have experience with, and then they can start to look at it as, okay, I like talking to this person. This person's cool. And I'm interested in what this person does. How can that integrate into what I'm doing? And so that's like with when I go to the convention, I'm able to to speak to people, and they can put that into context, and it's like, okay, or like I have a podcast that's about this, and I'm looking for music that kind of has this sort of quality to it, and so we can have a conversation about that. And so it's really a matter of being able to understand where other people are coming from, and being able to talk to them at their level while still making whatever it is you're doing sound really cool to them.
What about the idea that most DJs also have to be producers? I think a lot of new DJs are feeling intimidated over the fact that they can't get lineups or they can't get bookings, because even though they're DJing and they're having passions to be able to do it, they don't have a single on Spotify that rectifies that they are a little bit more engaged. I'm not going to continue to feed into the idea of like, what do you want to do? Do you want to DJ more? Or do you want to be a producer more? But for someone that has kind of a little bit of both, where you can have a little bit of flexibility between the two, is that something that you think that most beginner DJs should start to want to try to understand because it's become a social norm?
I think that I would encourage, basically, if you're DJing, I would encourage at least giving it a try, or at least understanding like getting to a point where you can understand the structure behind music. But it's like a basic DAW isn't expensive. I think I started on Mixcraft 8 off of Steam for like $30. And you can do a lot with a lot of basic free plugins and sample packs, but it really depends on what it is you're trying to do. Because if you're becoming a producer to get more bookings as a DJ, I don't know that that's like the best course of action, because then it's like, okay, becoming start from step one. Becoming a producer to become like a popular musician, that's you're already fighting an uphill battle there. Trying to do that, not even for its own sake to be a popular musician, but to flip that into becoming a popular DJ, I'm I feel like that's close to being a non-starter. If you become if you happen to pull off being a producer, becoming a popular musician, I'm I'll sit right there. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not being a popular DJ and just being a popular producer, but I don't really expect the popular producer thing to happen. I'm I know that there are a lot of people who like my music, and I'm content with that. Obviously, I would like more people to like my music, but then that's my job. Like, that's my job to put my music out there, and I feel like if you're a DJ and you feel like you have some vision, you have some ideas, you have some taste, I would definitely encourage more DJs to become producers, just because I would like to see what other people are able to make. I again, there are people in the fighter jet community that have started producing their own music, and the stuff they're making is it's they're making stuff in their first year that was a lot better than the stuff that I was making in my first year. And it's really impressive to see. And I w- and so there are a lot of people who I guaranteed, if they tried out producing, would make stuff that's impressive, especially for someone just starting out. Stuff that I would play in my set, especially for someone that's just starting out. I'd be happy to play in my set. But I would hesitate to say that doing that in order to get more bookings as a DJ is uh, that's not a course of action that I would travel. I would I would do the opposite. If you're a producer but not a DJ, I would get into DJing, because that is an additional avenue for promotion of your own music. But I don't know that I would do that the other way around. I don't know that that makes sense.
Kind of important to be able to talk about these things openly too, because there tends to be a lot of social peer pressure with that, and on top of it too, like for those people that are proactively looking to try to figure out what style that they want to produce, is kind of a very lengthy, long journey for yourself anyway. It's kind of like an actual drawing artist or a painter or whatever, is that you have your own style of how you produce what you want to produce. But the eternal question there, and I ended up kind of sending it off to you on Tuesday, was it's kind of difficult to know when a track is done. And I think a lot of people haven't gone over that hurdle yet, because of, again, going back to Coachella, Coachella. Oh man, I mean, we all have our own little opinions on it, and like, I don't want to say the wrong thing out of context, because at the same time, you could be really upset about someone who is just starting their DJ journey and they're so happy-go-lucky and like, I'm gonna go play my first show and I'm gonna go do this and I'm gonna rip music off SoundCloud. Here I go. And at the same time, you can't sit there and go, no. You want to give them the opportunity to say, all right, good luck. Like, we're rooting for you. And it's like, I don't know, it's like it's like raising a child, where you're just like, you got to let them run around and then, you know, get dirt on their knees and cry and get scraped up a little bit, but then explain to them what had happened and how they feel about it, and then try to figure out, because I don't know, I would assume that if you do scrape your knee as a child, it's either you talk about it and then you resolve it and you move on, or the kid's going to be a doctor. You know, like, you know, I mean, that's kind of two extremes, but at the same time, it's kind of the same thing with music creation. It's like, well, go and enjoy yourself and do your best. But just as you were saying, how there's so many plugins out there that you don't have to replicate people. You can kind of just do it to do it and have a good time. But it's because of things like Coachella that are saying that anybody can DJ, and you could be a celebrity in DJ and it's the best set on the planet. Or in this particular case, that, like, you know, you have your what up boy, what up, it's your boy whatever on YouTube, let's get into it kind of video of you producing a song, and it's just a bunch of boots and cats, and you're just like, I made boots and cats. You can't hinder that learning experience, that educational experience, but again, there's points in time that are just like, are you doing it for the right reasons, and how do you feel about it afterwards? Not even to jump into conclusions of the whole burnout, you know, the fact that we keep talking about burnout on here, just because we never want people to just burn out. We want to, you know, talk to them and say, it's okay to take a couple of months off. It's okay to take a break. Come on back when you're refreshed and you've got a lot more motivation and a lot more ideas. It might kind of hitting it on the head as far as your process goes when it comes to, like, you know, making music, and sometimes you need to take a break, or maybe you're running into people that are wanting to just put all the chips in to kind of be like, I'm a DJ now, I'm going to produce.
Yeah, I think I kind of accidentally stumbled into a pretty good process, because at least for the past few years, I only drop projects in, like, summer, and that's usually leading up to that one convention that I go sell my music at. But it gives me plenty of time to figure out, okay, I have these tracks, this track, this track, this track, and this track kind of fit in a similar, like a similar style, a similar aesthetic. I can make an EP out of this, or I'll I'm gonna I'm starting with this concept. I'm gonna work on like a 7-track album based on that, and it gives me time to say, okay, these tracks are done. I'm I'm looking at it. I can't figure out what I want to add to it, so I'm going to declare it done and do nothing more with it at that point. And so it gives me a lot of time to say, okay, uh, here's what I'm doing here, here's what I'm doing there. Uh, I don't necessarily I don't necessarily need to take this track and drop it this year, because I worked on it this year, but it gives me time to declare things done. And that's especially it gets more important as I start to take on more commission work, and as I start to do more things with tempo, where I don't have as much time as I used to work on making music. Now now it's okay, I want to drop one project this year, at least one project this year, and anything else, I can finish that. Anything else is bonus. Anything else is okay. If I finish an EP, okay, I can. If I really want to, I can drop it this year. If I if I feel like my workload is a bit bigger this year, and I don't want to handle a release, like a second release this summer, I can leave it till next year. That's not going to stop me from playing those tracks in a set, but uh, I I give myself enough time to declare something done before I put it out, and sometimes that's like 10 months to a year. I definitely have left a track on like a 90% or so for the better part of a year, and then came back and it was like, huh, I can add this, and this to it, and then it's done.
Kind of going back to how we were saying how you like to be so busy all the time.
Yeah, that's part of being busy all the
I
time.
feel like we just kind of went full circle
yeah.
here, where you're just like, well, I got all these projects, and then all of a sudden, I'm just thinking in the back of my head, I'm just like, man, if only people could think like you do, as far as like the many cool things that you could possibly be doing, while also DJing.
But again,
and
I love doing all of it.
Yeah.
So that's the part, is that it's all things that I would be happy doing this instead of this, but I kind of have to get this done because it's time sensitive versus, okay, this is a kind of a conceptual music project that I have, and I don't necessarily have to put it out today. I don't really do. I'm really bad at social media. I don't really announce my own albums until like, okay, guys, this is coming out in a week. It's something I've never mentioned before.
I mean, I just wish people were just as motivated as you are. That's all I'm saying. It's VRCDJLIVE.
It's really easy to be motivated about like something that you love doing, you're passionate, and you're good at.
Yeah, absolutely. And VRChat gives you that opportunity to be able to do that. So much so. We're sitting here with our guest, Utami Hasegawa. We got a couple more minutes left of the program because, again, we just sit here. We just kind of BS our way through all the cool DJ things that happen to be in VRChat and all the fun things that we could possibly be doing in here, of course, of it being a live program and being able to ask the questions and get the answers. That's kind of how all of that is kind of concerned. Let's just say somebody wants to join Tempo or is interested in maybe some upcoming promotional events, or do you have anything kind of coming up, or how can people get more involved with Tempo?
So every other Tuesday, I run a Tempo instance. It's usually in a fighter jet world, not always, but that I try to have a poster out for that. So that's a good way. Also, the fourth Saturday of every month, 7 p.m. Eastern, we run Flight Night. That's always in a flight world, and we get 3 DJs. They each play for an hour. If the event runs long, the event runs long. If people are still flying around, I might jump on, or I might have someone else jump on. But that's a good way to if people are curious about what we do at Tempo, Flight Night is always a good opportunity to jump in and kind of see what we're all about. We're the other thing we're working on, and I'm not sure when this is going to happen. I want it to happen this year. Is we're working on a competitive flight music event where it's team on team. It's basically Tempo versus whatever club is visiting. Each team has 2 DJs, 45-minute sets each, and they take turns being on offense and defense. So the DJ will be in the back of the AWACS plane, spinning from there, and the 2 pilots from their club are tasked with defending their DJ, while the other 2 pilots are they don't you don't have to shoot down the DJ, you don't have to shoot down anyone, but you're competing for score. So it's to your advantage if you can stop the opposing team from shooting down targets and scoring.
Do you get a better score if you do like effects or spin, backspins and like, or
I'm trying to work out a way to incorporate that into it. It might be a tiebreaker for if at the end of 4 rounds each team has 2 wins, it might come down to, okay, audience, move into this circle if you liked these DJ sets more, and move into this circle if you liked these DJ sets more. And I might do that anyway, just for like an audience choice thing, but I want to, because again, it's taking what clubs do and what the fighter jet community does and merging it together in a way that kind of makes it different from what either of them are doing. So it's kind of Black Aces and Dogfight Central, they'll do dogfight tournaments all the time. This is different. This isn't necessarily a dogfight tournament. It's more of force on force, PvE, kind of PvP, but with that extra element of like it's kind of harkening back to, again, back in Jamaica, they used to do this. They would do a sound clash where one sound system, one team of DJs like like sound boys and whatnot, they'll play their stuff, and then on the other side of the street or the other side of the hall, the opposing sound system would be playing their stuff, and it's competing to see who's the best sound system, who's the champion sound. So we're doing that. We're taking that and we're adding fighter jets to it.
But we're just doing it in the sky and we're shooting each other
Exactly.
down. So
Exactly.
We're dropping the sound bass and stuff like that.
Well, they used to destroy each other's like equipment at the end of some sound
Oh,
clashes.
that's wild.
That happened back in the day. So we're doing that, except it's like $1 million fighter jet aircraft now.
It's a whole nother term to base cannon, that's for sure. What's the future for Utami Hasegawa? What are we looking forward to in 2026? Is there anything you want to promote? You want to showcase what you're working on?
So we did mention commissions. I'm currently on the team for an indie flight game called Super Maneuver. What we're trying to do, kind of, sort of. We're obviously doing our own thing, but aesthetically, stylistically, it's sort of a spiritual successor to Ace Combat 3. And that's something a lot of people like Ace Combat. Ace Combat 3 was really unique, even within that series. So a lot of people really latch on to Ace Combat 3, and we're taking that like PS1 futuristic era graphic style, trying to make a game that's like that. But of course, it's our own thing. And I was the producer for Project Wingman had personally reached out to me to ask if I wanted to do the soundtrack for it, because Ace Combat 3 kind of has that ToonamiCore vibe with its music. So I'm really excited about that. The devs and the writers everybody is on one with this game. I'm really excited to be able to talk more about it.
And then be able to actually put it together, and then you could, again, you're going to have to find a way to put it up on social media without it being like, here it is in a week. But I know that I think a lot of people are interested in that, and as soon as you have more updates on that, I mean, hearing about that on social media would be absolute gold, and a songbird in the ears kind of a thing. So that's super exciting to see. Before we get out of here, normally with our guests, we ask a bunch of rapid fire questions, and hopefully you've been thinking about your answers. I know every time we have a guest on, I feel like they already know what these questions are going to kind of entail, even though they are rapid fire, and sometimes I try to change them up. We just don't know. Out of everything that we've kind of talked about, between making worlds and flying aircrafts and DJing and finding your sound and stuff like that, is there a really good word of advice that you can add to today's interview to somebody that's looking to either join the community or wanting to DJ? I think we kind of touched upon it earlier on, but for those people that are joining in, and maybe give them a good word of advice.
I would say anybody looking to get involved, if you haven't tried DJing yet, I would say give it a try. Download, mix, maybe get yourself a cheap controller or something like that, and give it a try. Find some music you like, and just sort of experiment with it. Experiment with bringing one track in off of another track and all that kind of stuff that you hear DJs do. And the reason for that is because I feel like, and why, part of why this particularly part of why I kind of latched onto this is because I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's a low barrier of entry way to become legitimately involved in the community, to where you can contribute something to it. It's a stepping stone to other things that you can begin to contribute to the community based on like the culture you come from, the subculture you come from, the skill set you have, stuff like that. So DJing is a really low barrier of entry way to get involved.
What are a couple of some artists that you listen to currently all the time, and what are a couple of new artists that you're listening to that we can kind of get to know better?
I always have to, as far as artists go, I always have to shout out. Are we talking about in general or in VR specifically?
Probably what you would listen to on Spotify. Like I usually say, "What are you listening to on Spotify?" And then I had one guest say, "I don't listen to Spotify," and I'm like, like everybody. I mean, so
yeah. So always have to give a shout out to LTJ Bookham. He's kind of like the guy as far as atmospheric jungle goes. Other artists, ASC, Aural Imbalance. I've been listening to a lot of artists on like the spatial waveforms, curvature label. So basically any of those artists in that family, those are all really good to check out if you're into atmospheric jungle or that ToonamiCore, that kind of vibe.
we were going to go to the whole VRChat category thing. What are the top 3 VRChat DJs that you enjoy watching?
3 that I can name off at the top of my head would be one would be Pocholo. Pocholo is the DJ I mentioned that kind of grew up in tempo. The other one would be I'm going to butcher this. His DJ name is Ars Goetka, username Gaugurengar. He DJs for Resumo a lot. He played this atmospheric jungle set at Launchpad that I had come to just say hi to some people, and I stayed because this DJ is playing like my song, all of my songs. So it's those 2 and Straggler, who is the one who gave me my first set, and always excited to listen to what they're coming up with, because they always have some very, very unique, like ethnic sort of house music that I've never heard before. And so and that's one thing I love about the VR DJ scene just by itself, is I always hear music that I've never heard before.
And then you had a nice little well-rounded answer with that too, kind of like a, this guy who started, this guy who's beginning, and someone in the middle, and someone. It's nice and well-rounded. I think I enjoyed that. So normally we would be asking, what is your 5 spots in a VRChat rave bingo? But I think what I'm going to ask is, what are the 5 spots in your VRChat airplane bingo? What would be your 5 airplanes to be on bingo? Or fighter jets?
My 5 fighter jets.
5 fighter jets to get bingo.
The Dassault Rafale, the Su-33, the Mirage 2000, which you don't see a lot. Do they have to be fighter jets, or can we name like other aircraft?
I mean, any aircraft is fine. They don't have to fight each other. They can fly.
The A-50, which is an AWACS plane, and the Su-47, which is like a Su-33, except the wings are swept forward.
I know, it's like the same thing with like sports cars where they have the spoiler in the back, and I'm just like, are they actually driving faster? Does it actually help with speed or wind resistance or anything? I don't know. It looks cool. That's all I really care about. Before we get you out of here, where can we find you on the internet?
So I am Utami Hasegawa everywhere. If you find an Utami Hasegawa there, it is probably me. All of my music is on Bandcamp. You can find the mixes that I'm happy with. You can find on YouTube. I do this series called Flyboys Love Jungle, where I intersperse it with flight game visuals. You can find me on X, Utami Hasegawa. My username is Utami Hasegawa on VRChat. I think utamirecords.com/links has all my links there.
And it's kind of what we were posting up on the chat as well, to be able to kind of take a look at all of that. And it's kind of important for people to go see what you got up on YouTube. I think it's all very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the the DJ battles in the sky, and I'm hoping that's going to be really successful for you. And I'm really glad that you were able to come on the show today.
I'm glad to be here.
And that's going to do it for us for VRCDJ Live for the month of April. But wouldn't you know it, that we are coming back in May, and we're coming back with a vengeance, because we got a cracked out lineup. But before we get to that lineup, of course, if you're just tuning in, that's the end of our show for today. But if you would like, we're going to be featuring Utami Hasegawa and all of our guests up on YouTube with highlights and replays at your convenience at VRCDJ Live. Of course, you can peep the recent schedule and even more information up on X and Blue Sky, as well as some of the highlights and some other video content coming in the future up on our Instagram at VRCDJ Live. You can find all that information through our link tree, including some documents and our own Google form for if you'd like to be a guest on our show, or if you know someone that is really passionate about our community, or a group that you want to be featured on our show too. We want to try to get as many people in here so we can continue to talk about what we do in VRChat and how amazing our space is. All of that can be found in the bio down below on Twitch. You could also find it in the bio on YouTube, but all of our links are provided for you on the link tree. Speaking of which, for the month of May, drum roll, please. Our lineup coming up, and we're going to be posting it up on Saturday as well. Our next guest on VRCDJ Live, special guest straight out of the Netherlands, Polymathic, is going to be joining us on the show to not only break down how he's able to come up with his group and Skybase, as well as his entire whole drum and bass like career that he's been kind of working on, but he's also a Twitch ambassador to the music program and the DJ community on Twitch. So we're going to kind of grill him on a bunch of questions about the DJ community, where Twitch is kind of heading in the future for the DJs, as well as what he does for Skybase and all the things happening out in the Netherlands. The following week, we're going to be joined by the guys of District 1 and the community of District 1 to kind of sit down and kind of, again, talk about how popular their group has been, and how amazing their artists been, and how they've been able to celebrate 1 year of putting on shows and all sorts of future things within their group. So that's going to be happening for us. We are going to be taking a week off after that for MomoCon, as I've got to go and perform. Sad story, we can't do a live show out in Atlanta, but if you are heading out to Atlanta, please stop on by to MomoCon and come and hang out with us. The week after that, very, very big show, we're going to be joined by the guys of Virality, as Virality will be happening at the beginning of June. And not only are we joined by the guys of Virality, but we're going to be talking DJing from Virality, as well as understanding how to get into Virality, the things that they've been looking for, and the ever-growing success of furs that DJ in virtual reality. It's going to be a cracked out show, cracked out lineup for May. So we really hope that you can join us for all of that. Of course, the poster will be posted up on X and Blue Sky a little bit later this weekend, as well as on Instagram and pretty much everywhere, so everybody gets an idea. So for our guest Utami Hasegawa and our VRCDJ Live staff behind the glass, I'm Rob Roman. Thank you guys for coming by, and we will see you next time.